All right, good morning, everyone. We are here for joint committees on energy and environmental protection and labor and government operations, Tuesday, March 19th, 9:50 a.m., conference room 325. We have one bill on the agenda, Senate Bill 3103 relating to energy. And this deals with labor standards for large-scale renewable energy projects. And first up to testify, we have DLIR.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members. David Rodriguez with the DLIR. We stand in our testimony in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Hawaii State Energy Office.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, representatives. Cameron Black on behalf of the Hawaii State Energy Office. We stand on our written testimony in support. I did want to highlight we did make a few suggestions for the committee's consideration regarding removal of the word offsite, and also excluding post-construction inspection, which can be highly specialized in some cases. Thank you.
Thank you. And then PRP, Pacific Resource Partnership. In support, Operating Engineers, Local 3. In support, Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters.
Chair and members, Nathaniel Kinney, Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters. Strong support of the bill. We do also want to include a little bit of amendments if you guys could consider, and that would be the deletion of off-site, like the State Energy Office said, and the exclusion of post-construction testing and inspection as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Blue Planet Foundation. In support, Hawaiian Electric on Zoom.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. Hawaiian Electric is testifying with comments to SB 3103, requesting an amendment to ensure that our vital projects are not delayed in the event that there's not enough labor available. Thank you.
Thank you. And then comments from Tesla. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, questions? Do you guys have quorum? Okay.
Yes, we have one.
Okay, we all have quorum, so I think we'll just go straight to decision making. So for this measure, we're going to adopt the amendments of the Hawaii State Energy Office, which I think also include the concerns raised by the carpenters. That's to change the word contractor to person on page 3, line 12, to amend the definition of instruction to narrow that to on-site and excluding post-construction equipment testing or inspection, and then clarifying the definition of renewable energy. We'll defect the date to the year 3000 and move this forward. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on SB 3103 SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair both vote ayes. Representative Gates is excused. Representative Kahaloa.
Aye.
Representative Peruso.
Aye.
Representative Woodson is excused, and also Representative Ward. Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you.
Committee on Labor and Government Operations, same recommendation. Any comments? Not, Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chair. LGO members voting on Senate Bill 3103 ST2. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Capella.
Aye.
Representative Martinez.
Aye.
And Representative Sayama, Tam, and Alcos are excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Good, thank you, members.
All right, we are adjourned. All right, we're back for a hearing of the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection, Tuesday, March 19th at 10 a.m., Conference Room 325. First on the agenda, we have Senate Bill 3360 relating to renewable energy, and this is the renewable fuel production tax credit bill. We heard something similar on the House side as well. And first up to testify, we have Department of Taxation.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Teresa Zetwick on behalf of the Department of Taxation. We stand on our written testimony offering comments, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. The Attorney General.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chairs, Representatives. Josh Michaels, Department of the Attorney General. You have our testimony. Just wanted to respectfully reiterate, we oppose this bill as currently drafted because of our serious concerns about the constitutionality, but we have provided very straightforward fixes. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hawaii State Energy Office.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Monique Schaefer, Hawaii State Energy Office. We stand on our written testimony providing comments on this measure. I do want to highlight we provide some inline text edits that would make the administration of this bill a lot more straightforward, particularly the BTU conversion, just to make sure, gases, fuels are all compared at apples to apples. And then we also remove some language that provides additional tax credits for sustainable aviation fuel, but ensures that it is, inclusive of sustainable aviation fuel. I'm available for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Tax Foundation of Hawaii on Zoom. Not present. PAR Hawaii on Zoom. Oh, present in person.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mark Inoue from PAR Hawaii. I apologize. I was going to do Zoom, but I was able to be here in person. We appreciate the support around renewable fuels, especially if we're really trying to reach our clean energy goals. While this measure is very similar to a companion bill, PAR Hawaii prefers amendments of HB 2767, House Draft 1, which addresses renewable fuels, especially for sustainable aviation fuel. As a critical component. I'll be here for any questions. Thank you for allowing me to testify. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaiian Airlines in person.
Hi, good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, and members of the committee. My name is Alana James. I'm the Managing Director of Sustainability Initiatives at Hawaiian Airlines. So we will stand on our written testimony providing comments. But I just wanted to highlight that our suggested amendments seek to provide incremental value for sustainable aviation fuel compared to renewable diesel in order to close the relative margin gap between the two. Without this, producers will not have incentive to produce SAF, and there's risk that aviation emissions will not be addressed with this tax credit. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Pono Pacific.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Chris Bennett, Pono Pacific, and we'll stand on our written testimony and available for questions. Thank you.
In support, and Pacific Biodiesel Technologies.
Good morning, Chair Lowen and Vice Chair Cochran and committee members. First, I want to thank you for having this hearing and having the hearing for the House version. And thank you, Rep. Cochran, for sponsoring that House version of the bill. I think you guys are doing good work here. I do have, in my testimony, you'll see that I have some amendments that are proposed that addresses the Attorney General's concerns, which they've been raising throughout the session. Part of that is to basically strengthen the purpose clause. Right now, you look at the purpose and it's related to firm renewable energy. Obviously, we need firm renewable energy in the state. What goes more specific, if you are considering the additional incentive for the local feedstock, then to tell everyone why you're doing that. And one of the really good reasons to do that is to keep the for example, keep the used cooking oil out of our pipes and out of our landfills, and other waste materials that would be used for renewable energy to keep them out of the landfill. I think that helps you overcome the objections related to preferring local over foreign, I guess, feedstock. So I think that would be a good amendment to this if you are going to keep the additional credit for the local feedstock. And again, to the purpose, look at Section 1. It's all about firm renewable energy. We have our renewable energy sources, solar and wind and others, but what we're lacking, I think we've all seen it in the weather patterns of this early spring. We have rolling blackouts because we don't have firm energy, and this bill, as drafted, supports locally produced firm renewable energy. I'm here for your questions, and I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. And we have Ted Metros, or Theodore Metros in person.
Hello, I'm Ted Metros. I used to work for PAR Hawaii. I was terminated less than 48 hours after I had provided testimony on the House previously on 2767. So I'm rather passionate about this. I wanted to get my message across. This is a very large tax credit bill with stackable credits increasing for the base fuel of about 56 cents and another $1 for 75% reduction, and under the House bill, an extra $1 for sustainable aviation fuel as well. And the numbers really, really tally up when you multiply them by the huge volumes of renewable fuel that must be brought in as well. Even under the most likely scenario, which PAR Hawaii has acknowledged, is to import the renewable fuels, you're looking at close to $95 million in terms of tax credits. In addition, if the SAF adder is added on, that would add another $36 million in terms of tax credits, potentially refundable tax credits as well. These are very large dollars. The PAR Hawaii refinery was bought along with terminals for $80 million. The investment for renewable fuels there is approximately $90 million. So you're talking about a payout in terms of tax credits that is nearly the cost of the refinery, nearly the cost of the upgrade in a single year. So very big dollars. And the question is, who is the real benefactor of these tax credits? Is the state going to benefit tremendously from them? You've heard from advocates for the airlines. They're hopeful of getting reduced prices for renewable fuel, but there's no real incentive that those tax credits would be passed on. There's nothing within the bill that says that these reduced prices conceptually would be passed to the airlines. Hawaii will always be at risk for the threat of the renewable fuel that's going to be produced being shipped out of state. There's a lot of federal incentives in place, another one coming up right at the end of the year that will add another $100.50 per gallon for the sustainable aviation fuel. So the notion that there is not enough incentives, there's plenty of incentives already. This tax bill really only supports those companies that have existing facilities, and it's a huge expansion in terms of the allowable deductions that may be. It's going from 3.5 million up to, the initial proposal was 75% of $80 million or $60 million. Senator Wakai was just mystified under his questioning of PAR that a single entity could claim up to $60 million per year, and with no assurances of that going back into the economy. In terms, you've got a real dichotomy here. You've got to decide what you want, but the power plants already have a mandate for use of renewable fuels. Why would they need an additional supplemental credit? The prices will have to rise, and they have gone up. Pacific Biodiesel has provided a small percentage of the biodiesel at a very reasonable price of about a 20% premium, and that process can continue. So the rationale for these additional credits for sustainable aviation fuel is really questionable. And there are a lot of shortcomings and flaws that this bill should be reviewed much more carefully. It does not allow for importation of any renewable fuels, a fact that will have to be done. There just is not enough supply and capacity on the island, even with all the expansion efforts, to support the amount of renewable fuels that will be needed. You got to believe there's million-barrel cargoes of crude oil coming into the refinery all the time. It just cannot be supported. The whole notion that we're going to have locally grown renewable fuels is nicety, but it's far from the reality. Just IES is a big jet fuel importer. They provided testimony that said that to cover just 5% of the jet fuel that's being imported, 10%, sorry, you would need 244,000 acres of land under one of the most intensive oil seed producing crops. And yet, Oahu only has 386,000 acres of land. So the notion that Hawaii can supply, and the whole benefit for this bill was to have energy security, that's not what you're getting from this bill. In fact, you're going to undercut the potential for renewable fuels coming in at a lower price and supporting it by giving it just for production facilities. I would like to highlight as well is that the State Energy Office also made note that the special provisions for the sustainable aviation fuel, in their view, was deemed to be excessive and perhaps anti-competitive as well.
Thank you. Are you done? Thank you. I was going to ask you to summarize. Thanks. We have additional written testimony from Biotechnology Innovation Organization in support, Hawaii Farm Bureau in support, Hawaii Forest Industry Association in support, Airlines for America with comments, and 2 individuals in support. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, questions? Energy Office, I guess, Monique, I'll put you on the spot. We did note, what the last testifier mentioned in your testimony about the Energy Office suggested amendment to not have an additional tax credit amount for sustainable aviation fuel specifically. I guess I'm curious, well, first of all, the conversion that you're doing between per gallon to per BT, like 76,000 BTU, is that this comes out to the same value of tax credit approximately, or are you suggesting a lower amount of tax credit with those amendments?
I think we're kind of just keeping it consistent
Okay.
with the BTU that is there and then adding that 15% for locally produced.
Okay, so it sort of lines up to what, it's sort of trading out the dollar per gallon for that amount.
Correct.
I guess I'm curious about, I think it's a valid thing to question if the amount of fuels we can produce locally are really a drop in the bucket and that will never preclude the need for import, then in your guys' view, what's the value of trying to push for the increase in the local production?
I think that's a fair question, and it's without a doubt, it would be a drop in the bucket for the volume that we do need. And if we were to have substantial, local production, it would take up a lot of land. So we know that to be true. As far as the, incentive goes, I think, we have a great example of Pacific Biodiesel. Yes, it is a drop in the bucket compared to the volumes, but there is a benefit to having locally produced fuel. And, it can be done in ways that it doesn't necessarily compete with food production. And I think that's really the intent. But yeah, it is still small, and it is hard for us as local producers to compete with imported fuel. That will become a lot cheaper than what we can produce in the state.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any other questions? Ellie, go ahead.
For Pacific Biodiesel?
Thank you,
Morning.
James Horst.
Yeah, James, mahalo, thank you for being here. So people have been mentioning that you folks, what you create or maybe even potentially can create will only be a drop in the bucket. What is your build out? I know you folks are busy on Kauai Island. I know you've been trying to make inroads in Maui County, had challenges there. I was told with your owner, Kelly King, that to supply all of our vehicle diesel needs of Maui County, or Maui, you folks needed maybe not even 20 acres of land in order to, but I think that maybe I heard the number incorrectly. So if you can just talk towards that to explain, the potential of your, impacts to us.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Right now, we produce about 6 million gallons of biodiesel, and that's second-generation biodiesel. One important thing to distinguish is that we don't take up existing cropland. What we're incentivizing is the use of cover crops. So when you're a farmer, you has 2 cash crops, and then hopefully they will use some kind of cover crop to heal the soil. What we want them to use is an oilseed cover crop. Would have similar benefits, but will also have this added addition of producing local feedstock, okay? That's a very big distinction in maybe first-generation and second-generation biofuels. Second-generation biofuels are not supposed to take up food crops and land for food crops. Now, what the purpose of me, I was helping draft this bill, was to help us, the state has said they need more, okay? We need more firm renewable energy really is what we need to supplement the solar. So right now we have 6 million gallons. We have a project on Kauai that you guys are aware of. Now that could possibly double our production over the next 10 years. So we're willing to make that investment. We've been open to the state saying, hey, if we're going to do this and give you your firm renewable energy, then we need something to help us, pencil that out. That's what we're here for. SAF to me is a different subject. It had its own bill. Those bills might not be, you might not have the room in your budget for those bills. We don't need $80 million, folks. I don't think there's going to be $80 million in the budget for any of this. So if you expand what we're doing locally, your threshold around that exists already, the 20 million, that's more than enough for a company like us and the other companies that have come before you today, or not today, sorry, in the past. That's not to say that, SAF isn't important. I just think that the firm renewable energy problem is probably more important at this point since we have a limited budget.
Thank you. A follow-up? Sure. Thank you. And also, I really appreciate the company, offsetting the cooking oil aspect, which also puts towards, a good energy source. And as infrastructure from the past, we've had sewer lines clogged because of it going down the drain. So you can just explain a little bit more about that and how you positively affect our communities.
Okay, so that's important, especially when it comes to the Attorney General's problems with the bill. Like when you're creating a local preference over, some other state, you need to be able to justify that and your purpose of why you're doing it, and you're not supposed to be able to have a way to do that in another way. So what we're really focusing on in this is our business, of course, we work on used cooking oil. Used cooking oil being removed from our pipes and our landfill. That's what we're doing, incentivizing the recycling of it. So that is something that we believe that the purpose of that provision will overcome objections in court. It's very important. And I think that ultimately addresses your question, but yes, we're not our business model is pretty unique in that we create cooking oil because it's a value-added project. We also create oil for your skin. These value-added products help us make money. We're not making tons of money right now. We're doing okay. We've been here for 20 years. We know what we're doing. We're doing a good job, but selling biodiesel is a difficult task. Making it in Hawaii, just like everything else, is expensive. So we do that by selling the cooking oil to a restaurant, and then we work with the restaurant. We pick it up for free. We don't charge them. This is a disposal product, a waste project, and we pick it up and we make renewable energy. This is the circular economy that everyone's been talking about. It helps local jobs, local good jobs, by the way. Our production plant, we have engineers, professionals, and then we have good trucking industry jobs, stuff like that.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for the time.
All right, any further questions, members? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next bill on the agenda. Senate Bill 3194 relating to energy. This is a wheeling bill that I think has been narrowed down to a study. And first up to testify, we have DCCA, Consumer Advocate.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Mickey Knox for the Consumer Advocate. We stand on our written comments. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Hawaii State Energy Office.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Monique Schaefer, we stand on our written testimony and am available for any comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Utilities Commission.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Pete Polonsky on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission. We stand on our written comments in support of this measure, and I'm here to offer any answers to your questions as you may have them. Thanks.
Thank you. We have Life of the Land on Zoom, not present. Hawaiian Electric on Zoom.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is James Abraham, testifying on behalf of Hawaiian Electric, offering comments and proposed amendments to Senate Bill 3194 SD2. We are asking that the committee hold this bill as we do have strong equity concerns with implementing retail wheeling in Hawaii as outlined in our written testimony. If the committee is inclined to move this bill to continue the discussion on wheeling, in our written testimony, we do offer some proposed amendments to limit this bill to intragovernmental wheeling, that is, wheeling between government agencies, which we believe may minimize the equity concerns with full retail wheeling as the bill is currently framed. Lastly, we respectfully ask the committee to reconsider some of the more disparaging statements against the utility that are found in the preamble in Section 1 of the bill, as these are not helpful or necessary if the committee does want to move this measure, and we disagree with many of these characterizations. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. And then Blue Planet Foundation in person, but I think they're not here. And then we had, that was everyone signed up to testify in person. We had additional written comments from Ulupono Initiative, Hawaii Solar Energy Association in support, KIUC in support, Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party in support, Hawaii Clean Power Alliance in support, and one individual in support. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, quick question for, I don't know, maybe PUC or Consumer Advocate, we'll see. I think HECO's suggested amendments are to narrow this study down to intragovernmental wheeling, which I think is where at least I personally have been more interested in looking at wheeling and how we could enable that. But do you think there's value to keeping this assessment broad? Because there's no equity concern if we're not implementing anything, right? It's just an assessment.
Yes, I think so. I think, even if the scope is left a bit broader to retail wheeling, I think intragovernmental wheeling would certainly be one of the core aspects through which the commission would evaluate whether wheeling is in the public interest through a docketed proceeding where parties can intervene and discuss these concerns, including the equity concerns that we share with retail wheeling from a broader perspective. So I think regardless of whether the measure looks at or specifically calls out retail wheeling or intergovernmental wheeling, I think intergovernmental wheeling will be one of the at least initial focal points.
Do you think that this will provide anything different than the 20-year-long dockets have provided?
Yeah, I think so. I think with sort of this clear sort of mandate to evaluate retail wheeling or intergovernmental wheeling will certainly make the docketed process look for ways to be very sort of targeted in how we're evaluating whether wheeling is in the public interest. I've looked at all of the procedural history for the previous dockets. The docket that we've mentioned in our testimony before that was on intergovernmental wheeling had some sort of issues with how it was established and sort of a lack of clear boundaries and definitions of what the goal of the docket was. I think we would, in setting up a docket following this measure, we would look to make it very clear what the boundaries for like the scope of when we need to determine whether it's in the public interest and what issues we need to evaluate. We would make that very clear. I think also with the previous measure, there had been a legislative resolution encouraging the commission to look into intergovernmental wheeling. I think this sort of stronger sort of mandate for the commission to look into retail wheeling or intergovernmental.
I guess the question is because it would be nice to actually move some. I mean, we never know what's going to happen throughout session, but we've discussed this issue over and over. I mean, even if we move forward a measure to look at intergovernmental wheeling, I feel like that would be a win. Hawaiian Electric wants amendments to explicitly narrow it to just looking at intergovernmental wheeling. And so there could be value to incorporating that and having everyone be in agreement with what moves forward. But I guess the question is, how strongly do you feel there's additional value to keeping it open-ended toward other, outside of intergovernmental wheeling? Because for years and years, the testimony from PUC, Consumer Advocate, and even Energy Office has been to be like not supporting generally opening up wheeling to anyone. So do you feel like that analysis has already been accomplished?
I think there is value to leaving it a bit more open-ended to retail wheeling. Should the commission be able to come to a clear determination whether retail wheeling is in the public interest or not, that could wrap up a lot of the ongoing debate that has been going on for the past several decades. And allow the commission and parties to move on with whatever form of wheeling is determined to be in the public interest.
Okay. Should we include additional language to, ensure that we're considering big picture things like resilience and things like that? Would that be helpful?
I think so. We've outlined a few issues, some of the complex and interrelated issues of wheeling in our testimony. I think the measure could specifically call those out for the commission to consider within this docketed process, and I think that would, lend itself clearly to when the commission establishes the scope of the docket, and for referring back to it in the future. So some of those are, interconnection, the availability of transmission and distribution capacity, appropriate rates and rate design, and this is getting to the equity concerns as well as the impacts on utility and non-participating ratepayers.
Okay, so I'm looking for where it says this
It's
specifically
in the middle of the second paragraph.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions, members? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks. Do you feel there's more urgency now since the wildfires had occurred in Lahaina?
I don't think the urgency has changed for the renewable energy transition. I'm not sure that wheeling would have addressed or mitigated any of the issues with the Lahaina wildfires.
Sorry, a follow-up. I think just moving forward in our building out and utilizing best practices and what have you, from here on out, since everything's gone, we can now look towards these types of, concepts and programs and processes. I mean, it's been talked about on the county level, but this was like so far-fetched idea of wheeling. But now that it's obviously here being discussed, I think there is an appetite for it. And I think at this time, Lahaina would definitely be willing to look at it and see, if it should move, on this level, of course.
Yes,
so just wanting your point of view, whether, it's worthwhile to look at and worthwhile to discuss.
I think so. I think as a sort of financial mechanism to enable more more distributed development of renewable energy, I think that's certainly within the state's goals for the transitioning to renewable energy and enabling customers to be more involved in that transition.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions, members? Seeing none, last bill on the agenda. Senate Bill 2537 relating to energy. This clarifies reporting requirements of the Chief Energy Officer. It's a housekeeping bill, essentially. And we have testimony from the Hawaii State Energy Office.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, we stand on our written testimony offering support for this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll recess very briefly for decision-making. Oh, sorry, members, any questions? Anyone else here to testify? Okay, brief recess. All right, we are reconvening the 10 a.m. agenda, Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. First up will be Senate Bill 3360. This is the Renewable Fuel Tax Credit Bill. So we're going to adopt DOE tax amendments, Hawaii State Energy Office amendments. We're going to adopt Pacific biodiesel suggestions to amend the purpose clause and affect the date to the year 3000. So with that, any discussion, members? Go ahead.
Chair, I just wanted to thank you for the conversation, and I appreciated the testimony. I'm going to be voting WR just because I think in our fiscal context, I feel uncomfortable with this kind of tax credit to corporations. So for that reason, I mean, I'd like to vote no, but I'm going to vote WR.
Okay, and the amendments we're taking are cutting it. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. If no further discussion, Vice Chair.
All right, voting on SB 3360 SD1. Chair recommends to pass with amendments. Both Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. And Representative Peruso is a WR. Any other members here voting with with reservations or no? Seeing none. Chair, and noting the excused absences of Representatives Gates, Woodson, and Ward also. Your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then next we have Senate Bill 3194. This is the wheeling bill. A few amendments to this. So we're going to accept HECO's amendments to take the language they don't like out of the purpose clause. We're going to, on page 4, line 18 to 21, there's a one-time reporting requirement that will move to session laws. And then from PUC testimony, we will add some additional language to clarify the parameters of what we want to be looked at, and we'll include some of what they mentioned, the interconnection, availability of transmission and distribution, capacity, appropriate rates and rate design, backup power requirements, impacts on utility and non-participating ratepayers, et cetera, just to ensure those aspects get considered. And then we may need technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. We'll defect the date to the year 3000. And move this forward. Members, any discussion? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on SB 3194 SD2, Chair recommends to pass with amendments. Chair, Vice Chair vote ayes. Noting excused absences of Gates, Woodson, and Ward. Members, any reservations or noes? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And last on the agenda, Senate Bill 2537. This is the reporting requirements regarding the RPS for HSEO. And we're going to just move this forward as is. Let's see if the next committee allows it to stay that way or if we have to defect and redefect the date. So if no discussion, members, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Okay, voting on SB 2537 SD2, Chair recommends to pass as is. Chair, Vice Chair vote ayes. Excused absences are Gates, Woodson, and Ward. Members, any noes or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned.